So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our September, our fall Zoom, even though it's still summer, our fall Zoomcast series. A warm welcome on behalf of all of us here at the Benefits Trust. We'd like to thank you very much for this time you're spending with us this morning. Carrie Lane is in the house from the Benefits Trust. Mike Ignatz is here, Jordan Bullhose, and of course, Rob Crowder, my son, is going to be running this things behind the scene because, I've got fat fingers and it doesn't work well. Anyways, an exciting time for sure because after being in this business for as many years as I have been, I always love the fall because I love the weather, I love the food, as the harvest goes. But more importantly than that, I think things get really busy in the fall for many advisors, and it was always a really good time for me, anyways. And I think a lot of people are on the same boat when you're getting close to those January 1st renewals, but also it's just a good time because people want to get projects done by the end of the year. Anyways, enough of that. Welcome to our Zoomcast series. At the end of the session today, Mike Ignatz is going to send you a CE credit for participating today. We're also going to sign you up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter. If you don't get it already, you will start getting it, which is great. We're going to send you a real short survey. Please fill it out, send it back. And this subject actually came from information that we've received and feedback we've received from you. So tell us how we did today. Tell us how we can do it better tomorrow, and tell us what you'd like to see in future Zoomcasts. Um, as we've set these things up many, many years ago and started or doing these Zoomcasts, it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being in a room where everybody gets smarter, and that's important because in the insurance business, we share information, and we share a great deal of information, and we share it in ways that we all get smarter. So it's about being in a room where everybody gets smarter. If you have a question throughout the session today, put your little hand emoji up so it pops up on my screen and I'll get to you, or chat it, put it in the chat box, and Rob or Mike or Jordan or Carrie will answer the question, but everybody can see the question and everybody can see the answer as well. So please feel free to do that. And so everybody can see so we can all get smarter. Let me share my screen right now and let's go through what we've got prepared for today. So today, let me just hide this. There we go. So today, what we want to talk about is ASO Funding 101 for all size groups. It's really all just about ASO funding, and let's jump into it real quick. What is insurance? That's where we're going to start. When do you need insurance? Administration services only. We want to talk about that, ASO, funding of ASO contracts and so on, and how we come up with some of the funding rates that we come up with. Myths and misconceptions, questions, answers, discussions. And we're going to end promptly at 11 o'clock so you can get your CE credit. But if you want to stick around for a few minutes afterwards, we're going to be here and we can continue the discussion a little bit offline and a little bit more colorful, perhaps, because it's not being recorded. Anyways, that's our agenda for today. So a little bit about us and sort of where we're coming from. We started the Benefits Trust on January 1st, 1994. That's right. I got to say 1994 because that was quite a few years ago. We're a full service third party benefit administration company. We're the largest independently owned TPA in Canada. In 2024, we were named top employer and top benefit provider by Benefit and Pension Monitor magazine. And stay tuned for an announcement tomorrow. I can't tell you what it is, but there's an announcement coming out tomorrow. What we do is we provide custom employee benefit solutions. We don't just provide healthcare spending accounts. Some people think that's all we do, but that's not at all we do. We provide custom employee benefit solutions for your end user clients. Our clients tell us that they have an exceptional client experience with us. We can expand more on that if you want later in the session or offline. We've got long-term relationships with all the major Canadian insurance suppliers and service suppliers, as well as a number of specialty providers as well. And our target market is working with advisors like you that have between clients with 1 to 100 employees. And we're saying 1 to 100, that's what our target market is. We do have quite a few clients that are larger than that. But let's face it, Canada is made up of a whole bunch of small employers. In Ontario alone, there's 440,000 businesses with 1 to 100 employees. So that's why that's our target market, because it's the biggest market. Simple as that. So what is insurance? When we type it into AI or Google, you come up with this pretty standard definition. It's a pretty boring definition. Insurance is the contract between you, the policyholder, and the insurance company. You pay a set amount of money called a premium on a regular basis. In return, that regular basis could be monthly, it could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be annually, whatever it is. In return, the insurance company agrees to cover certain risks. If something bad happens, they pay part or all of the cost, depending on the policy. Pretty standard stuff. Pretty boring. Like I'm sure half of you were almost asleep by the time I finished reading that, or you finished reading it. What is insurance? Insurance is to protect against defined catastrophic unexpected events or unexpected catastrophic events. It doesn't matter what order you put it in. Insurance is to protect against catastrophic unexpected events. Simple as that. So when do you need insurance? When do you need insurance? Do you need insurance on your car? Everybody, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty safe to assume that most of you have cars of some sort, right? Do you need insurance for fuel, oil changes, wiper blades, or a car wash? No. Do you need insurance on changing your seasonal tires or brake service or regular maintenance? No. Do you need insurance if your car is stolen or it's in an accident? Probably yes, depending on the type of car you have and the value of that car. What about injuring a pedestrian? You hit a school bus full of children. Absolutely, you need insurance. And it's also required by law that you have insurance for these catastrophic type events, right? So yes and no, you need insurance when you have a car. And it's interesting because I used to drive, 40,000 kilometers a year. So I would require brake maintenance more often than my wife, for example, Michelle, who would travel 10,000 kilometers a year, right? So I would spend more on brakes than she would, but I don't have insurance for that type of thing. And I don't think you can get brake insurance per se. It's all based on your mileage and your utilization. Do you need insurance on your house? Well, yes and no. Many of us own homes, right? But, for lawn maintenance or garage cleaning or leaky eaves troughs, do you need insurance? No. It's just, painting your living room or your dining room. No, you can't get insurance for that. Renovating your bathroom, that's your choice. You don't get insurance for renovating your bathroom. Rebuilding your house after a fire, a flood, or a tornado. Absolutely, you need insurance. What was it? Not this past summer, but the summer before. A tornado went through the south end of Barrie and wiped out, did significant damage to a number of homes in the south end of Barrie. And yeah, hopefully they all had insurance because there was, catastrophic things that happened to their homes. Their roofs blew off. Their cars were damaged while they were sitting in their driveway because their neighbor's roof hit their car or hit their car. Yeah, these are things that you need insurance for, not for painting your living room, right? Do you need insurance because you can't go to work because you're sick or injured? Well, the answer is maybe. First of all, how long is the duration of the illness or the injury? I've got the flu. Do I need insurance to protect myself from, not being able to go to the work because not being able to go to work because I got to take a week off because I've got the flu? It also depends on how much money you have in the bank. If you got $10 million sitting in the bank, you may not need a lot of insurance because you can't go earn a living, right? So it really depends. It depends on a number of things, but the answer is absolutely maybe. Do you need insurance for routine trips to the dentist? The answer is no, you don't. The average trip to the dentist costs somewhere between $250 and $500 per visit. Is it catastrophic? No. Is it unknown? No. Is it unexpected? No. How many of us in this room right now are going to go to the dentist in the next 12 months? Well, I certainly am, and I'm sure everybody's got their hand up as well, right? But you don't need insurance per se to go to the dentist for a routine exam, right? Do you need insurance if you want to go for a massage? No. The average trip for an RMT costs somewhere between $75 and $150 per visit, depending on where you are. Many of you know Blake Waddell, and Blake and I were out at Whistler this past weekend, and Blake participated in the Grand Fondo event. And Blake rode, which is a biking event that you drive or you ride your bike from Vancouver up to Whistler, and it's 122 kilometers, and the majority of the event is uphill. And I was asking him how he felt afterwards, and he said he was a little tired and a little hungry, and his legs were a bit sore. And I was talking to him the day after the Sunday after the event, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going for a massage. Right? I need a massage. My back's sore and my legs are killing me." Right? Well, he was going for a massage in the hotel that he was staying at, and it was maybe $100, $150 for that visit at the RMT. But again, it's not catastrophic. It's certainly not unexpected. Right? So, do you need insurance for that? No. Do you need insurance for routine maintenance medication? I take the generic equivalent of Lipitor. It's pennies a day. Do I need insurance for that? Me personally, no. Somebody else, depending on the medication that they're taking, maybe. It depends on the cost. Depends on the cost of the drug, right? It depends on the cost. You see a common theme here. Our job as professional advisors is to understand what our clients' risks are, right? Understand, and we need to educate our clients about risk. And it doesn't matter what type of insurance you're selling, whether you're selling life insurance or whether you're selling disability insurance or whether you're selling car insurance or home insurance or business insurance or business interruption insurance, whatever type of insurance we're all selling, it's important that we educate our clients about risk. And everybody's risk tolerance levels are different. Everybody's risk tolerance levels are different. And how do you start this conversation? Well, you start this conversation by asking these future-based questions. Not where what your risk tolerance was 10 years ago, it's where your risk tolerance is today and tomorrow, where it's going to be next year and the year after that and the year after that. You have to ask future-based questions. It's about risk tolerance. And this kind of reminds me of the very, especially because now it's September and a lot of kids have gone back to school, whether it be high school or university or public school, whatever it is. But I remember in 1983 when I went to McMaster University, the first university exam I ever wrote was in 1983. It was a macroeconomics exam. So it was macroeconomics 101. I remember the course. I remember the professor. Don't remember his name, but I remember the professor. And I was nervous. It was the first ever university exam. And the first question on the first ever university exam that I wrote was, what is the purpose of a corporation? And anyways, to make a long story short, the answer was when we took it up in the following lecture after the exam, and the answer was to maximize the value to its shareholders. Period. That's it. Right? So the only way a business can be hurt is financially. If you sort of expand that out to maximize the value to its shareholders. Well, shareholders are there to make money. So the only way a business can be hurt is financially. So when we're talking about risk and we're talking about companies, our clients, and we're talking about selling employee benefits, for example, right? The only way a business can be hurt is financially. So I think the conversation will lead you to the right solution. You've got to understand what a client's risk is or where their risk tolerance levels are. How much will hurt the company financially? If they have a $5,000 unknown bill, is that going to hurt them financially? Well, it's not going to hurt us financially. Yeah, it's going to sting. We're going to go, that sucks, because no one likes to have an unexpected bill of $5,000. Or is it $25,000? Or is that $100,000? Right? Everybody's company is different. Everybody's risk tolerance level is different. Again, back to the insurance that you have on your car. I don't know what kind of cars you all drive. It doesn't really matter, but you may have a deductible on your car insurance. I have the maximum deductible on my car insurance because I'm only going to claim if there's a catastrophic loss, right? What is the long-term outlook of the company? What's the short-term outlook of the company? Businesses go through cycles, and they go through cycles for a whole host of reasons, and those cycles may change. That's why it's important to have this discussion every time you meet with a client, every time you meet with a prospect. What's the short-term outlook? What's the long-term outlook? What's happening in your industry this year, next year, the year after that? What does your profitability look like? Is it predictable? Because some companies have really, really, really predictable profits, and some companies don't. But it's to understand what factors are included in their profitability and the structure of the profitability, whether it's going to be predictable. What financial stresses are happening? Well, there's been a lot of financial stresses since there was an election in January south of the border. A lot of companies didn't really understand what the financial stresses were until a particular president got elected, and then there was all sorts of volatility, right? So their financial outlook may have changed from a longer term to a shorter term, an immediate term, right? Or they're going through a sale of a business. I was talking to a client of mine, and he was telling me that he was going to be selling his business in the next 18 months. He was going through the process of setting it up, his business to sell it. He's got a very different outlook than he did 10 years ago when I first started working with this particular individual. So it really depends on what the conversation you have with your client, whether they're going to go through a sale of a business or a merger, or somebody's going to be, partnering up with them. It's important to have these conversations. You have to have these conversations to advise your clients correctly. I know many of you do have these conversations, but you know, it's important that you do have these conversations because then and only then can you know how to approach your clients when discussing employee benefits. If you just walk in, I'm not saying any of you would ever do this, but if you just walk in and say, hey, let me search the marketplace, survey the market, however you say it, and let me show you a way that I can save you 10% because I'm going to go to market for you and I'm going to do all this work. That may not be on their radar. They may not care about the 10% right now. They're more focused on other things, right? But it's really important to understand where your client is financially and what their risk tolerance levels are in order to advise them about their employee benefits and how it's going to affect them in the future. Showing them how they can save a few percent may not be the best way to do it. I always start with, what is an employee benefit plan? We use simple language. And I know a lot of you have heard this in the past and you're probably rolling your eyes. But anyways, an employee benefit plan is a promise between an employer and a group of employees. What does that do when you say that? It frees up the business owner's mind. It frees up their mind to say, hey, I'm in control of my business. I'm in control of my employees, and I can pay them whatever I want, and I can promise them whatever they want. It frees up their mind. You, the client, can make the promise to whatever it is that you want. Our job as advisors is to help them facilitate that promise. We, as advisors, need to help our clients understand where the risks are within their promise. That's as simple as that. It has nothing to do with ASO or fully insured or refund accounting or any methodology. This is benefits 101. This is, hey, we got to tell the employer what a benefit plan is. It's a promise. We have to help facilitate them keeping that promise, and we have to advise our clients on understanding the risks within the promise that they are making to their clients. Simple, straightforward, right? Someone's making their client a promise or their employees a promise that if they die, they're going to get $100,000, right? What's the risk? Well, the risk is someone dies. And the risk is they're going to have to pay out $100,000 because they've got to keep that promise to the named beneficiary. It's contractual. They've made the promise. They've written it down. They've shared it with their employees. They've promised their employees that they would pay that named beneficiary $100,000 tax-free. Yeah, you know what? You need insurance for that. Because I don't know any employers that want to pay out, and it's not $100,000. It would be significantly more than that because they're making them a promise that they're going to pay out $100,000 tax-free. The only way to do that is life insurance. So if you make someone a promise and they don't have the insurance, hey, you're going to have to pay them out $200,000 so they end up with $100,000 tax-free. An accidental death and dismemberment benefit. Absolutely. You need insurance to protect against that catastrophic, sudden, unexpected event. If you're going to pay someone make someone a promise that if they get, cancer or have a stroke or have a heart attack or whatever it is, and they need a certain defined critical illness, and you're going to pay them out $50,000 or $100,000, yes, you need insurance to protect against that. Long-term disability, you're going to continue someone's paycheck if they can't come to work because they're sick or disabled. Absolutely, you need a promise because if you're making that promise to a 25-year-old that's making $4,000 a month, $48,000 a year, and you're going to cover 2/3 of that promise till they're age 65, that's millions of dollars. High cost prescription drugs. Yeah, you're making someone a promise that you're going to cover their drugs, and you're going to cover their drugs up to $1 million. Well, they could get easily a drug that's $500,000. Yet you want to have insurance in place to protect against that type of stuff. Out of country emergency medical responses or medical events. Someone's traveling, an employee's traveling outside of the country, whether they're on vacation or whether they're on, vacation or whether they're on a business trip, it doesn't matter, or their kids are, whatever. And they have an emergency medical event. Yeah, you want to cover that expense because it could be thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. A routine healthcare, like a massage or a, vision care promise that's $200 every 24 months. Or that routine medication that I was talking about, the generic equivalent of Lipitor, which is pennies a day. Yeah, you don't need insurance for that. There's not a lot of risk in that, right? A routine trip to the dentist that we already talked about. Yeah, dental. You don't really need insurance for that. The promise is pretty defined. The amount that you can spend there is pretty defined. Healthcare spending accounts. Do you need insurance for healthcare spending accounts? Absolutely not. Can't have insurance on a healthcare spending account. It's just trading of dollars. So it's helping our clients understanding the risks associated with the promise that they are making their employees and where that risk lies. That's our job as advisors. Once you know that, and once you know what the client's risk tolerance levels are and what their financial stresses are, and so on, you're able to describe what is the best way to fund that promise. And usually, again, with smaller clients, you've got two choices. It's either a traditional fully insured type of solution. You pay a premium, you get a certain benefit amount, and away you go. Or another way to do is administration services only, which is a combination of insurance and a combination of reimbursement services or administration services only services, where you're just paying for that self-insured component of the benefit plan using the employer's funds, essentially. So administration services only is a type of benefit funding arrangement. It's often referred to as self-insurance. With an ASO plan, the employer does not buy traditional insurance for health and dental benefits. Instead, the employer self-funds these costs of the employee's claims. It's as simple as that. We say, hey, we're going to promise that we're going to pay for your dental expenses up to a certain maximum. Or we're going to reimburse you for whatever expense you have up to this $100 or $500 bucket that we're going to give you, a healthcare spending account. Or we're going to pay for all of your routine drugs, and we're going to pay for all of your massages up to a certain level, and so on. These are things that the company is just going to pay for, right? As opposed to buying insurance for those things, right? An insurance company or a TPA, third-party administrator like us, can provide these administration services only. Right? The employer pays for the actual claim costs plus an appropriate amount for administration and, of course, taxes. It's just a funding method. That's all it is. This is a slide I have been using since 2001. When we were putting this presentation together, I asked Rob, who was putting it together, I said, go back to one of the old presentations that we have and pull up the slide because I wanted to show it to you because it hasn't changed. We've been using this again since 2001. And we've used this in hundreds of interviews with clients where you put it across for them and you say, they ask the question, what's the difference between the funding methods that you're suggesting? Well, there's traditional funding and ASO funding. Simple as that. You've got the promise. Let's assume the promise is the same on both sides of the equation. You're promising to pay $25,000 for life insurance. You're going to put in 2/3, LTD up to a certain maximum. You're going to pay for, routine trips to the dentist and the pharmacy and so on. Whatever the promise is, you're making this promise to your clients or to your employees, pardon me. There are risk charges for insurance. And the client goes, yep, get it. Yep, understand that. So we buy insurance for life. We buy insurance for AD&D. We buy insurance for in Canada large claims. Yep, we buy insurance for out of country emergency expenses. Yep, get that. So there's risk charges for the insurance. Then what the insurance company does on a traditional funding method is they anticipate what your group's claims are going to be for the next 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, depending on what position they're taking. They're anticipating what those claims are going to be. Under the ASO funding method, it's what your actual claims are. Okay, there's the difference. Anticipated claims versus actual claims. Then they're going to add in their plan operation expenses, which includes compensation for the advisor. And that's going to happen on both sides of the equation. And the traditional side, when you add those things up, it equals client premiums. When you add it up on the other side, on the ASO funding side, it equals clients' costs, which is a combination of premiums and actual claims and plan operation expenses. Regardless of which way you choose, there is a gap. There is a gap between those two. So either anticipated claims and actual claims, there's always going to be a gap. It's as simple as that. And the client understands this. Again, I've been using this slide since 2001. You can see by the graphics on it, for goodness sakes, right? But it just clearly gets the clients thinking in a way that they need to understand this, right? There's this gap. So some of the features about ASO is cost control. Employers only pay for these claims that are actually made, right? They're not paying for reserves. They're not paying. They're not paying for the insurance company potentially being too conservative for in coming up with the equation for those anticipated claims. So they're paying for the actual claims that they are made. The flexibility. Plans can be customized to meet the employer's needs. Like for example, years ago we had a client and they wanted a vision care benefit, but they wanted a vision care benefit that was $500 every 12 months. They were a fashion forward business. They were calling on their reps were calling on high-end salons, and they sold hair care products, high-end hair care products. They wanted their reps to have the best glasses that they could, and they wanted to help them with that. And they wanted a $500 annual vision care benefit, right? So you could have that flexibility built into a customized ASO plan. Transparency. That's another key feature of an ASO plan. The employers will have full visibility into macro claims activities and plan costs. They're going to see exactly what their costs are, and they can see it as frequently as they want, right? As opposed to, hey, we got to wait till the end of the year to see, if the anticipated claims were correct or not. Okay. As well as that, business owners quickly understand this concept. When you show them that old slide from 2001, for example, business owners quickly understand this. Because you know what? I'm a business owner. We've got 35 or 40 employees, and we look at financial statements every single month. We look at our expenses every single month, and like I was saying earlier, I used to drive a car 40,000 kilometers a year. My expenses were higher than my automobile expenses were higher than my wife Michelle's expenses, right? The more you use, the more you pay. I understand when we were doing some marketing campaign, our marketing expense might be considerably higher in a given month than another previous month or the following month. Expenses go up and expenses go down. There's a reason for it, right? And I understand that. Monthly reporting that we provide is sent to the client and you, the advisor, on a monthly basis, right? And that way, there's no unwanted surprises. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody sees exactly what's going on. Business owners, generally speaking, most business owners that I know, look at expenses on a monthly basis. They get a set of financial statements on a monthly basis where, on their dashboard that they can see exactly where they are. If something jumps off the page, then it's really interesting because the owner can dig deep right down a particular silo and they can understand what's going on and get answers for it. It's really interesting because we've got a new accountant in our office. She's been with us for about a year, just over a year now. Actually, almost 2 years now that I think about it. But we get these monthly financial statements from her, but she anticipates what our questions are going to be. And she's already answered probably 99% of them. Hey, marketing expenses up this month because of this. This expense is up that month because of that. But business owners look at their books frequently and they understand them. So this monthly reporting that we provide regarding their employee benefit program is an essential component of that and shows up often on their dashboard, if you would, on their financial dashboard. This is what it looks like. This is Sample Company Inc. And again, we haven't changed our financial statements in years because they work. And we have 3 columns on our financial statements: the current month, the year-to-date cumulative, and after 12 months, the previous year-to-date cumulative. So this is what the insurance company, this is what the client has sent to us for a particular risk, right? For their particular employee benefit plan. It was $7,201.21. There was $224 in premium for the life insurance. There was $984.75 for the long-term disability insurance, $156 for the stop loss insurance, etc. The anticipated claims that we predicted or the claims that they're budgeting for their health and dental, total just $5,800, right? Fantastic. So they sent us $7,000. We paid the insurance company the insurance companies that $1,400, right? It's a straight flow through. It comes in, it goes right out to the various insurance companies for their risk. We paid out so many dollars in claims in this particular month. We paid out $324 in dental claims. We paid out $180 in a hospital room night stay. We paid out $100 vision care, depending on what their promise was, etc. Their drug cards for their total company, we paid out $2,300. you can see where I'm going with this. In total, we paid out $4,109 in claims. The plan operation expenses on a monthly basis. Great, they paid out $869.81. Fantastic. So when you take A, what they sent us, B, what we sent out to the insurance company, minus C, what we paid in claims, minus D, what we paid in plan operation expenses, equals what their balance is. In this particular month, the client has a positive balance of $819.60. Year-to-date cumulative, $9,000, just over $9,000. The previous year-to-date cumulative in that particular year-to-date cumulative, I should say, they had $4,300 in deficit. We paid out $4,300 more than they paid in. So the client can see exactly where they stand according to their budget or in relation to their budget, so there aren't any expenses or there aren't any surprises, pardon me. Business owners hate financial surprises. That's why we ask those risk tolerance questions. They don't like financial surprises. So that's why we show this on a monthly basis. Yes, in this month they had a surplus. In other months they've had deficits. We know that surpluses and deficits certainly happen, right? But one thing we don't do is collect on a monthly basis. So ASO, when we're talking about ASO, it's really about timing. You got a sparkly head office from an insurance company, right? With unbelievable furniture in them and boardrooms and meeting rooms and all sorts of stuff. And then you got this business that you're serving, right? And it's really about timing. And over ASO funding wins 90% of the time over a 5-year period, without a doubt. Wins 90% of the time over a 5-year period. It's like a casino. Casinos are made to win. Have you ever seen a casino in Las Vegas? Oh my gosh, they win. They make lots of money, right? It's amazing. The casinos always win. So think about it when you're talking about, to your employer, your client, your prospect that's got 20 employees or 15 employees or 7 employees, and they're working hard in their business, and you're saying, hey, do you want to set up your plan so the insurance company wins, or do you want to set up the plan so you win? Right? It's an interesting question. We use a budgeted approach to ASO, a budgeted approach. Predictable cash flow is king, right, to any business. We use a budgeted approach. All benefits trust plans use budgeted monthly rates to fund the plan. The budgeted rates are set for a 12-month period, similar to a traditional fully insured plan. The budgeted rates and contributions are transparent and easy to explain. So people say, how do you come up with your rates? How do you come up with your rates? Well, it's easy. It's a very straightforward mathematical exercise. And again, when we go through this with prospects, when we go through this with advisors and their clients, and I've done this numerous times, like hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, the client's head nodding up and down, the advisor, your head's nodding up and down. They go, where's the magic in this? Where do we get it? So here's just, we're going to zoom in on this particular client. In this case, let me go back one. This particular client, I know it's difficult to see, has 81 employees. And this is just a company that we've picked out of a random company we've picked out of our database. 23 single employees, 57 family employees. So 23 and 57. Great. So this was a prospect that we were looking at very recently. The claims for the health claims, extended healthcare claims for 2024/2025, the last 12-month period that was reported by the insurance company was $149,000. So this is what we received from the renewal that we received from the advisor. So we talk to the advisor, we talk to the client, we say, hey, great. The insurance company paid out in health claims last year $149,367. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Get the head nodding. So in order to set up an effective budget for the next 12 months, we think it's important to inflate that by 8%. We're using an 8% inflation rate and utilization trend. So in other words, the same cost of those claims next year is going to be 8% more next year in the future. Or sorry, last year's claims were 149,000. We think it's prudent to budget an 8% inflation and trend utilization rate, and we think it's important to budget an extra $12,000 or $11,949.36 for your claims next year, for those same claims. Great. So the projected claims for the next 12-month period is going to be $161,316.36. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, is that appropriate? Well, I don't know. Seems kind of reasonable to me. Okay, great. Do you want to change that to 9%? You want to change it to 5%? You choose. They go, yeah, okay, that's appropriate. Let's see how it continues. Fantastic. And then we say, okay, we're going to build in our administration fee, which, because we need to be paid for this and the advisor needs to be paid for this, and we're choosing a 13% administration fee. Fantastic. We're going to charge, for example, 8% for our services. The advisor is going to get a 5% flat commission. Great. There's your 13%. So we take the claims, we divide it by the target loss ratio of 87%, and we need to collect $24,104.74 based on that $161,000 in anticipated claims. Make sense? Yeah. Let's negotiate compensation right now. You don't want to pay that much? Okay, well, what services are we going to cut? And they usually go, great, we're fine. Excellent. Okay, so the total annual projected healthcare costs are going to be $185,421.10. Okay, are we good? Yeah. Now, we're not asking the client to write a check for $185,000. We're saying, hey, let's divide that by 12. We're going to set this up on a monthly budget. Let's divide that by 12, and we're going to say, now we need to collect $15,451.76. Does that make sense? The client goes, yeah. Okay. But we know your population may change throughout the year. Some people may retire, some people may be terminated. You may be through a little bit of a growth spurt. You might hire somebody, but we want to come up with a single family rate because that's what you're used to. So what we do is we want to find out how many people are covered under this plan. How many people are you making promises to? Well, we know that there are 57 families in the plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a family factor of 2.7. We're going to say every family has 2.7 people in it. Simple as that. Is the 2.7 correct? Don't know. We've been using it for years and it works well. Where did we get it? From an underwriter at an insurance company. So we say, fantastic. We're going to say there are 57 people. We're going to multiply that 57 people by 2.7. So we come up with 153.9 people. Then we're going to add in the family or the single people. And in this case, there are 23 single people. So we're going to come up with 176.9 people that we are going to be providing benefits to. So if we divide $15,451, the total monthly premium required, contribution required by 176.9 people, we come up with $87.35. We need to collect $87.35 from every person that's covered under this plan. So in order to come up with a family rate, we just take that $87.35 and we multiply it again by that factor of 2.7, because again, every family has 2.7 people, and we come up with $235.84. Then we say, therefore, we think it would be prudent to budget $87.35 for every single employee you have, and $235.84 for every family employee you have. That's how we come up with our health rates. Same math, the same process is how we come up with our dental rates. So the client is responsible for what their claim costs are. However, we come up with this budgeted approach so they can see exactly how we came up with those rates. And if those rates are a lot higher than what the insurance company is suggesting, fantastic. If those rates are a lot lower than what the insurance company suggested, it's up to the clients to make decisions. If those claims are on par with what the insurance company suggests, again, it becomes a different discussion about, plan design and all sorts of things. But in the simplest way forward, that's how we come up with those rates. It's straightforward math. This is what you had last year. These are the claims you had based on the promise that you had last year. Let's inflate that. Let's add in the appropriate costs. Let's divide that number, come up with that number, divide it by 12. That's how much we need each week. And then let's come up with an appropriate amount for single and family. It's a simple mathematical exercise. We plug that in to the budget page. Let's talk about stop loss insurance. And we can talk about this till the cows come home. But I think in the month of October, we're also doing a chat TBT on stop loss, where Claire Wood Stanley from our office, our head underwriters, coming in to talk about that. But stop loss is an insurance type. It's a traditional insurance product that can be added to an ASO benefit plan. And what stop loss does is it covers in Canada healthcare claims that are in excess of a certain attachment level. So it protects the employer from unexpected catastrophic claims by reimbursing expenses above a certain threshold. It's called an attachment level or deductible. So as simple as that. You are making a promise to your employees, for example, that says we're going to cover you for 80% of your drugs or 100% of your prescription drugs. As I mentioned, you can take prescription drugs that may be a few cents per day or quite a few $1,000s per day. So you need to make a promise to your employees that covers them for all of those drugs. But if there was no cap on those drugs, you want to put a stop loss policy in place to mitigate it against those catastrophic, sudden, unexpected events. Again, the only way a business can be hurt is by money financially. So if I'm making my employees promise that I'm going to cover them for all of their drugs, geez, I want to put an attachment level in, like a deductible. I'm going to say $7,500, for example. $7,500, fantastic. So how does it look? God forbid somebody has a claim of $150,000. I'm sure many of you have clients that have claims of $150,000 for a single drug. We certainly do have in our office. So the member claims $150,000. The stop loss attachment level is $7,500. So what does that mean? The client pays the first $7,500 of the promise. The insurance company pays the rest. So the promise is we're going to pay for 100% of your drugs up to $1 million. Fantastic. $1 million a year. Fantastic. Oh my gosh, I've got a really expensive drug. It's $150,000. Great. I'm responsible if I'm the client. I'm responsible for the first 7,500 bucks. Yeah, I can pay that. And the insurance company is going to pay the rest of $142,500. Simple. You can choose, or the client can choose more specifically, what stop loss level or deductible they want to have for their benefit plan. In other words, what's the financial risk? What risk are they willing to undertake? It's much like a deductible on your car insurance. I got a deductible on my car insurance for my pickup truck, and it's $2,000. But I got another deductible in here. I'm only going to claim if my accident, knock on wood, the accident that I have, or whatever the expense is more than $5,000. Anything under $5,000, I'm going to go, that's a risk of me driving. Anything above $5,000, yeah, I'm going to be claiming through my insurance. My car gets stolen when I'm at the airport. Yeah, I'm claiming it through the insurance. If I get in a parking lot dent, I'm not claiming it through the insurance. Right. So
Hey
stop
Rob,
loss.
Dave's got his hand up.
Dave, does he?
Yes, he does.
Dave, jump in.
I
Dave,
just thought you've
Dave,
said this
yep,
so well, but I
yeah.
thought I'd throw in one thing that you didn't quite say, and this stop loss is contractual. It is in writing. It is the promise that the insurance company has made to the benefits trust to make to you, to make to your client, versus any insurance product that has stop loss, it's non-contractual.
Tell me
So,
more.
yep. So if you go to, can I say other companies' names? Those big three maybe, and you buy for your like 30 life group, and you buy a plan, the stop loss is only conceptual. It's not in the booklet. It's not in the contract. It does not exist. It's a bookkeeping entry that they do. They can change at any time, and we've seen that. Stop loss used to be 2,500, went to 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, 12,500, 15 with some companies. They do not have to honor it in any way whatsoever. And we've seen that happen as well, where people said, oh, no, no, that's pre-existing. We're not going to cover that. Or different variations. But the product here, when you're going ASO, is a contractual product. So whatever the wording is in that contract is what's governing. It's not conceptual, it's real.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a great deal, actually. Thank you. So stop loss insurance continued. This allows for high frequency, low cost prescription drugs to be funded through the ASO budget or the budget at ASO. So again, high frequency, low cost. Am I taking this drug tonight? Yep. It's low cost. Fantastic. But it also protects against the opposite, that high cost, low frequency event. Chance of somebody having a $150,000 drug claim is remote, but when it happens, you want to make sure you have the appropriate insurance in place, not just conceptual insurance, but the appropriate insurance policy in place. It's similar to large amount pooling, but it's contractual. And the only difference, or one of the only differences, is we show what the rates actually are. In our arrangements, we show exactly what the rates are. They're transparent. It's this much money per single and this much money per family. Not a percentage of healthcare claims, which is vague and changes every single year at renewal. It's a specific number. You see it, the client makes a decision based on that number. We can show that the client gets to choose the risk level associated with what the risk tolerance levels are, and it can make them informed. It can help them make an informed decision. Again, benefit plan is a plan design promise between an employer and an employee. It allows you to exactly promise what the client wants to promise exactly what they want. They can truly customize the plan, and the plan is tailored to their needs. One of the things that we love doing, and we've spent a lot of time on this, is unlimited coverage for owners and executives. We can put that in place, and we've talked about that. We can if you want to find out more information, reach out to any of the folks from the Benefits Trust. We'd be happy to talk to you about that. But the 100% owner plan is just an executive plan is fantastic. We can put in formulary and formulary protect plus as on your drug plan as well. We can de-risk the plan by putting certain maximums in place, combined maximums. We can do all sorts of different things, but it's important, again, to have this risk tolerance discussion with your client. So, hey, maybe in a hybrid plan is important. Maybe it's just match the existing plan that you've got. But whatever it is that you are planning, you've got to have whatever it is that you're promising, you've got to have the appropriate insurance in place to protect against those catastrophic, sudden, unexpected events. ASO and renewals. Well, at renewal, the administrator looks back at the actual claims from the previous year. When we're looking at has a low TLR, the owner owns the surplus, right? The owner owns the surplus and also owns the deficit. The client is responsible for however many break jobs they have. It's as simple as that. If their salespeople do a lot of running around that year, you know what? Their car expenses are going to be up. All of a sudden, COVID hits. Guess what? Car expenses are way down. I went from driving 40,000 kilometers a year to driving 0,000 kilometers a year. Right? Guess what? My gas bill went down. My wiper blade bill went down. My brake bill went down. Like it's amazing when you think about it, right? So if you have a surplus in your account, on an ASO plan, the client owns that surplus. If there's a deficit, the client owns that deficit. They're responsible for it. When there's a surplus and when there's a deficit, we take that into account at the time of renewal. You could use that surplus by getting a refund back. You can use that surplus by taking a contribution holiday. You can use that surplus by increasing the benefit promise that you're making your employees. Same thing happens when there's a deficit. The client can make a payment, a special payment to cover that deficit, not on a monthly basis, on an annual basis at the end of the year. They can have a deficit recovery component built into their budget for the following year, or they can reduce the promise that they're making their employees. It's entirely up to them. But it's really the deficit amount or a surplus amount is taken into account at the time of renewal. This is very similar to a traditional fully insured plan, but what you're going to see is just an increase, right? It's just going to see an increase. It's as simple as that. But when you're, unlike insured plan, there's no pooled claims, right? That risk charge is built into the premiums. You're renewing based on the real dollars that are spent in your employees' health and dental claims. There's no IBNR and other reserve requirements. IBNR, I don't want to talk about IBNR. It drives me crazy, but incurred but not reported. Well, it's so easy to make claims now from the insurance companies. Why do they need this reserve? Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. They need that money back, and they've made it so easy to get that money back. Here's your app on your phone. Press take a snapshot and press send, right? You're going to get your claim back in the next day. So people aren't saving their receipts in a shoebox on top of the fridge. They're taking care of those receipts at the point of purchase. They're taking care of them right away. Why do we need an IBNR reserve? Well, sorry, the insurance company charges it. And we have to have it in place, or other reserve requirements. No variable credibility factor. Oh my gosh, if your plan is quote unquote running well, your credibility factor's up. Sorry, the pool is running bad on a traditional plan, therefore we need an increase. You ever had that happen? Yeah, the pool's not running so great, so there's an increase. Or your credibility factor goes from 100% to 50%. Or if your plan is running really bad, your credibility factor increases and it's 100%. You're 100% responsible. It's a traditional plan. So there's no variable credibility factor that changes year over year. There's more transparency in an ASO plan. Clients truly see where the projected rates are and where they're derived from. We went through that. We can spend more time on that on a one-on-one basis if you like. The other thing that is really important to note is when there's a large claim for a particular reason, whether it's a hospital stay or somebody's had an injury or whatever the circumstances are, and it's not going to be a reoccurring claim. We take that out of the calculation. Yes, the client is responsible for those costs, but we take it out of the calculation because we don't think it's going to happen again in the future, right? That's not always the case with a traditionally fully insured plan. They don't take those claims out. They just put it in their claim experience. So what we want to do is we want to ensure that plans are adequately funded, not overfunded or underfunded. We want to make sure they're adequately funded. So we take all these things into consideration. So ASO is really a state of mind. That's all it is. It's a state of mind in the client's eyes. It's a long-term strategy that helps companies manage their employee benefit expenses effectively, period. It's a state of mind. Just like all other expenses in their business and their personal life. Your life is an ASO plan when you think about it. We use the car example. We use the house example. My car expenses were a lot, and all of a sudden COVID hit, they were a little. It's an ASO plan, right? Yeah, I got car insurance. That stays consistent. But my utilization of those high frequency, low cost events change year over year depending on my activity. Same thing happens in a benefit promise. Changes year over year based on the activity. But what you can have is you can make the promise according to what your requirements are. I want to talk about myths and misconceptions. And we talked about this when we were putting the slide presentation together, and we can spend hours on this. But what I want you to do is when you get a chance, I think Mike's going to send it out as well, but you can go to our website, thebenefitstrust.com. You go to the resource section, right? It's pretty easy. You go to the resource section, and then there's great tools. And there is a highlighted here, myths and misconceptions of ASO group plans. You can see that. Click on that. Oh, and something just happened. There we go. And this report comes up. Here's the 11 myths and misconceptions of ASO plans, right? And you can see it and you can spend some time looking at it. It's a great leave behind piece. It's 3 pages long. We can easily send that out to you every single, we can send that out to you when we send out your CE credits. So when we think about ASO, it's really, as I mentioned, a state of mind. That's really what it is. Your whole life is an ASO plan. It's important to know that, but it's businesses operate in this fashion as well. I don't buy pencil insurance in my business. I don't buy pencil insurance. I buy, my expenses may increase if we use a lot of pencils. If we don't use a lot of pencils, we budget for them, but think about it. So why do we buy insurance in this fashion? You buy insurance based on risk. You don't buy insurance for things like pencils or things like a routine trip to the dentist. That's how clients think. We have to explain things in English so clients understand them. So how to evaluate if ASO makes financial sense? Well, send us your most recent renewal. We're going to send back to you very, very quickly an apples to apples comparison, right? And it's going to take 10 minutes to do. Right? It's going to take you 10 minutes to evaluate whether it makes sense to show this to your client. We had a very recent situation, and this irks me, and I was talking to one of you guys about this, but it really irked me because we sent this client, or this advisor, a renewal. Sorry, he sent us the renewal. We sent him back an ASO solution. And the ASO solution had a fairly substantial savings for him, like to the tune of, I think, 18 or 20% for the client. The client was getting ripped off, in my opinion. And I followed up, or our office followed up with the particular advisor, and the advisor said, yeah, I didn't present that option to the client. And the feedback that we received was he didn't present that information to the client because he didn't want to look bad in front of the client, that he says, he could find a solution that might have been better for him to the tune of 18 or 20%. He didn't give them the option to vote, the client. But more importantly than that, what he said disturbed me is he said, or what he said to the office, which disturbed me, he said, besides, I don't want to take a 20% reduction in my commissions. Wow, let that sink in. Okay. Anyways, the way to evaluate if ASO makes financial sense, send it to us. We'll send you an apples to apples proposal, right? And you're going to say, great, this makes sense. No, this doesn't make sense. Whatever your evaluation says, we're going to tell you the honest to goodness truth because we can't hide behind it. It's just numbers. It's just math. It's as simple as that. Rob or Jordan or anybody from our office will be able to help you out with this. Mike is there, of course. Lindsay, who's not on the call today, she'd be there to help you out as well, help you present this, help you go through it, help you understand it completely so you're never embarrassed in front of your client. So in summary, because we've only got a few minutes left, when do you need insurance? Well, you need insurance to protect against catastrophic, sudden, unexpected events. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Simple as that, right? ASO is a long-term play. It's a state of mind, right? It's the state of mind that you've been operating your life in for years and businesses have been operating in for years, but it's a state of mind, right? And creative plan designs work. We've talked a lot about creative plan designs in previous Zoomcasts and in future Zoomcasts. I'm sure we will, but creative plan design works. So keep those things in mind. Upcoming Zoomcasts, get the most out of your travel insurance. We've got some dates in October, October 9th, October 7th, 9th, and 22nd. Check out our website, sign up for those. It's going to be some valuable tools that you can use. We've got a few minutes left, but if you got to go, we want to thank you very much on behalf of all of us here. Oh, where is this stop share? Where's my, there it is. Okay, sorry. On behalf of all of us at the Benefits Trust, we want to thank you for taking the last hour of your life and spending it with us. We greatly appreciate it. If you've gotten one good idea from this, it's been time well spent. Dave, thanks for your feedback as well. I really appreciate it. Anybody have any other thoughts, questions, or ideas? Am I off the mark? Am I crazy? I love to talk to smart people that think I'm nuts.
Sorry. I think just you're totally on the mark. I think just more people have to ask more questions and not assume and kind of take the easy way out. And I mean, you gave some examples of why people do what they do, but I had one the other maybe about a week ago, and they had done a huge amount of work instead of asking one question.
Yeah.
Like and the client had high claims, and so they decided they should go out and do a marketing and impress the client and give them options to cap plans and everything else. Came back and presented the owner just looks at them like stunned, saying like the number one and two highest claimers are myself and my partner. We're okay with that. We're okay with the renewal rates. Why did you do that? And they're like, oh, well, to try and impress you. Well, how about calling me? Like it's the simple asking the questions. And Rob, I was gonna say you preach about that, but I mean we don't do it well enough. Advisors are kind of afraid of our clients, and we have to ask more to kind of make sure that we get a good fit. And when we do, we end up with a better product, better solution, and everything else along the way.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. It's so true. We can't be afraid of our clients. We have to ask them questions. Think about it. What does a doctor do, or a good doctor do? They ask you a question. What hurts? Right? They don't make assumptions. Only you know how you feel, right? So we got to ask questions. We got to ask questions. It's as simple as that. Anyways, we spent an hour together. Mike is in the house. He's going to send you a CE credit. Mike, can you send out that myths and misconception thing as well? Fantastic. So we really
Will do.
appreciate that. And we're going to stick around for a few minutes, but you're going to get your CE credit, myths and misconceptions. You're going to be signed up for a Trusted Advisor newsletter. You're going to get a survey, fill it out, send it back. It's going to take you less than a minute. Tell us most importantly, what future subjects you'd like to see. It's going to be an exciting fall out there, folks. There's going to be a lot of opportunities, so please take advantage of them. I wish you great selling And we'll see you again real soon. Reach out to us because we're going to reach out to you as well. So thank you very much.